Wildlife photography is often down to how close you can get to your subject. Not always. In photography, rules are meant to be broken and variety can bring creativity. But typically, being able to fill the frame of your subject brings great results. So today, we're going to be talking about what could be the most important accessory a wildlife photographer can buy. It's not a lens, it's certainly not a camera, it's this, a teleconverter. Welcome to Adventures in Aperture. So if you've never heard about teleconverters before, don't worry, as I'm going to break that down for you now. A teleconverter is an optical device that mounts between your camera body and your lens. Its job is to increase the effective focal length of your lens, bringing you closer to the action without physically moving. In the case of this, the Olympus MC14, it multiplies your lens's focal length by 1.4 times. But what does this mean in real terms, and why are teleconverters especially cool for Micro Four Thirds photography? Well, take this Olympus 40-150 f2.8 lens, which by the way is one of my favourite all-time lenses, and actually we've got a dedicated review video on the channel if you'd like to watch that. Thanks to the 2x crop factor from the Micro Four Thirds sensor, the equivalent focal length is actually double, so 80-300mm. Now, if I pair the MC14 teleconverter to the lens, this focal length is multiplied by 1.4, increasing it to 112-420mm, getting me closer to the subject. And what about if I add the MC14 to my 100-400mm Olympus lens? Well, that actually returns an equivalent focal length of 280-1120mm, all thanks to the addition of that MC14 teleconverter. Now, being able to shoot at over 1000mm gives photographers a huge advantage out in the field, enabling you to line up subjects a great distance away. Remember, most wildlife is skittish and likely to dart away if you get too close, ruining any chance of being able to capture a decent frame. But there's far more to teleconverters, and knowing both how they work and their limitations is worth a few minutes of your time. First up, not every lens is compatible with a teleconverter. Each brand makes their own, so you can buy Canon or Nikon versions and use it with their full frame lenses. But for this video, we're focusing on Micro Four Thirds. And in the case of Olympus or OM System, whatever you want to call the brand, there are only certain lenses that are compatible with the MC14. And for reference, there's a 2x teleconverter available too. These lenses include the 40-150 f2.8 Pro, which we've already talked about, but also the 300mm f4 Pro and that 100-400 telezoom too. But how exactly do teleconverters work? Well, it's all down to the distance between the lens and the sensor plane in your camera. By moving the lens further away, it extends the equivalent focal range, and the MC14 is a really great example of a well-built teleconverter for a number of reasons. First up, it's light, and that buys into the ethos of the Micro Four Thirds system, which works best when kit is small and portable. In fact, the MC14 tips the scales at only 105 grams. Now, I've got lens caps that weigh more than that. What's more, the MC14 features a metal housing, so it's structurally strong. Remember, this is going to hold between your camera and your lens. And as you might expect from OM System, it's weather sealed too. After all, there's no point pairing one of the brand's cool weather sealed lenses with a teleconverter that would, prove to be a weak point. But of course, there is one compromise anybody using a teleconverter should be aware of, and that's the impact of available light when you do pair the lens with the teleconverter. You see, when you pair the lens to a teleconverter, this cuts the maximum aperture available to you. Every teleconverter comes with a trade-off. In this case, you lose one stop of light. So this f2.8 lens becomes an f4 lens when used with the 1.4 teleconverter. Now that might not sound much, but it can affect your exposure and autofocus performance in low light. So there are times and situations when using a teleconverter may not be the best option, or when you'll have to compensate for this change in maximum aperture by increasing your ISO levels to ensure you have a fast enough shutter speed to keep your images nice and sharp. One extra element to consider is cost. For the MC400 teleconverter, you're looking at around £300 or $300 for a new example, but you can get used models for half that price. Now, this is important because think of how much extra money you'd have to find if you wanted to achieve the same sort of focal lengths without a teleconverter. Long story short, you'd be spending a lot more. One lens we haven't talked about is the OM System 90mm macro lens, and this is another optic that is compatible with the teleconverters. Now imagine just how close you'd get to your subjects when you use this combination of gear. Absolutely fantastic for macro photographers. Now, explaining in words how much closer you can get to your subjects is one thing, but it's far better to show you with photos. So let's take a look at some comparison imagery now. All the shots were taken with the 40-150, and we'll see comparison images with and without the teleconverter. So let's round up this little video about teleconverters. In short, they give you extra focal length, they weigh practically nothing, and actually are very reasonably priced. For micro four thirds photographers in particular, they help you make the most of this system's superpower, getting you closer to subjects that otherwise you'd not be able to get near. Sure, they have compromises, but the pros outweigh the cons. So, are teleconverters a wildlife photographer's most important accessory? Well, what's your opinion? Do you use a teleconverter or do you stay clear of them? Alternatively, if this isn't the wildlife photographer's most important accessory you can buy, then what is? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section, and please remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.